Hello, welcome to the crowd noise segment here on House Call Sports. My name is Sammy HT, that is Lawrence, and today we are going to be doing a QB tier ranking of the 2023. How did these QBs do in the 2023 season? And let me tell you, there are some of these QBs that I was high on coming into this year that did not end very well. Same thing can go with Lawrence. Lawrence, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited for this. I think at the end of the season, it's a good time to take stock. How have these guys done? And also, how do we see them, continuing on with their career? Are they going to, get to a next level? Are they going to fall off? It's interesting to see how we both think they're going to go.
Right. And a quick disclaimer, I know you're looking at that list right there of QBs and you're thinking to yourself, what the hell is Tom Brady doing there? Look, Tom Brady belongs in a category of his own. This is a tier made, I think, last year that we are using this year. And there are some QBs there that didn't really get a chance. Like, Mike White didn't really play much. Cooper Rush, the same with Stetson Bennett and Herndon Hooker and Kyle Trask. So some of these QBs are not going to be making the tier list. Consider those QBs just like future car salesmen, if anything. But we're going to start off with a very polarizing QB in this offseason, Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields is a polarizing for the same sake because, well, quite frankly, he's probably going to need a change of scenery. The Chicago Bears have the number 1 overall pick. They're likely going to pick Caleb Williams, which means Justin Fields needs another home. But we're not going to discuss if Justin Fields needs another home. Quite frankly, that's bogus. We're going to talk about how he ranks in these QBs, in this QB ranking. So, Lawrence, I'm going to go to you first. Where would you rank Justin Fields here? I'm putting the spotlight right on you, buddy.
I mean, we're kind of jumping into the deep end here with a controversial pick. I think Justin Fields gets a bad rap, personally. I think if you look at, the other 31 teams in the league, if you're the Bears, you're actually sitting pretty well with Justin Fields. Is he a top 5 guy? No. Is he a franchise QB? Well, they're thinking of moving off of him, so I'm not going to say that. At the same time, I don't think he's a game manager. You look at what he can do with his legs. He can change the game, and he does things that other QBs in the league, quite frankly, can't. Is his productivity, caused by the talent he's got around him and the situation he found himself in? Quite possibly. I mean, we're looking at a guy here who came out of college in a first round, was a really highly talented quarterback, and for good reason. And I just don't think he's been given a chance. So if anything, I'm leaning more towards too soon to tell for Justin Fields. But at the same time, in regards to that, I think he has every chance to be a franchise QB going forward. Not at the moment, but in the right situation with the right pieces around him and the right coaching staff, I absolutely think he could find himself in that column in due time.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. Now, I actually have this kind of opinion. I don't think Fields is capable of being a game manager. I don't think he has the skill set to be a game manager. I don't think he reads the field as well to be a game manager. I think his ceiling is a franchise QB, but quite frankly, we do not have a shot. He has not had a fair shot, rather, to really show that he can be a franchise QB. I think, look, with his skill set, who knows? Maybe he could be top 5. But I would agree with you, Lawrence. I think too soon to tell is exactly where Justin Fields is. I definitely think that he deserves a shot, whether it's in Atlanta, whether it's in Minnesota, whether it's in Pittsburgh. I don't know. But we're going to see definitely this offseason. New England, I bet you do. Imagine him and Mac Jones having a QB battle for the ages. My goodness.
Hey, Hard Knocks would be locked in if that happened.
Oh, Hard Knocks would literally pound the table with the money if they had that. I expect Hard Knocks to be in New England this year. You might as well. A new head coach. I think Bill Belichick isn't there. It's a new era. Why not get a first look? There's your pitch, NFL. Now, Dak Prescott, what a season he had, right? What a season he really had. And let me tell you, he was an MVP candidate, whether people want to admit it or not. Let me tell you, Dak Prescott, I'll go first here. I think he is the franchise QB. He's been their QB for so long at this point. I feel like you have to, and he doesn't have game manager tendencies. I feel like when it comes to the moments, he does come up small, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's not a franchise QB. That would kind of just say that, well, he's a choke artist. That's frankly what he is. So I think Dak Prescott's a franchise QB. Now, in that tier of franchise QB, I would still put him like in the middle of the pack. I definitely think he had an amazing year this year, but quite frankly, that Green Bay game left a really, really bad taste in my mouth. He was indeed a CeeDee Lamb merchant, and he couldn't really recover from that.
Yeah, I mean, Dak Prescott, the OG regular season hero, he is who he is. And he is prolific in the regular season and then nowhere to be found when it matters the most. I mean, look, is he a franchise QB? Yes. So he's going to go in that column. But realistically, right, for me, he's nowhere near top 5. He's probably, on the outskirts of top 10. And my issue with Dak is the same issue I've had with him for many seasons now. Is he's been surrounded by so much talent, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, all these guys that have been, top tier receivers, and in that time he has flourished. He's been in the MVP conversation this year. He's playing good football, and there's a reason why he gets paid so much money, and he does deserve a large amount of that. Issue is, the only knock against Dak is that he plays the most important position in the field, and when it comes to the most important games, he just can't find a way to get the wins. That's for me the biggest separator between the elite of the elite and guys that will just that need help to win playoff games. So for me, I'm putting him in franchise QB. But again, depending on who else goes in that column, he could find himself in the middle of that pack there.
Yeah, Dak Prescott, another polarizing QB for sure, mostly because he plays for probably the most hated team in all of America. All right, and I'm rooting for him. I like the guy. I think he's very humble. I think he gets a bad rep as a character, but in terms of QB play, he leaves a lot more to be desired. Now, next, Jared Goff, who was given up by the Rams. He was traded to the Lions for Matthew Stafford, and Jared Goff made another NFC Championship appearance. He has become one of the most underrated QBs in all of football. And, of course he's still limited, right? Like compared to like the QB we're going to discuss next, Joe Burrow, compared to the Mahomeses of the world, right? To the Seahawks, Russell Wilson's, right? I think that Jared Goff gets a really bad rep, and he's just this good quarterback. Like straight up, like I would say he's played a top 10 this year. I say he played at a franchise QB level. Say what you want about him and how his tenure went with LA. He has proved all the doubters wrong in Detroit. I expect Detroit to be right back into the mix when it comes to the NFC Championship game. I expect him to be there. I really do. So he is the heart and soul of Detroit. I don't think Detroit gets where they are without him. I'm going to put him in the franchise QB tier, me personally.
I agree. I mean, Jared Goff has been disrespected the majority of his career, right? The way things were handled in LA was a bad look for the Rams. I mean, you're looking at a guy they picked, was it first overall? They went and traded up to get him, I think it was, quite a while ago now. And he still took him to the Super Bowl. And the knock was, it was Sean McVay's system, and he was just, his success was a product of it. And they got rid of him. They went and got Matthew Stafford, and they had their own success with him. But Jared Goff has not exactly been a bum in Detroit. I mean, aside from this year, where he has been elite, even in last year, he was still one of the bright spots on that team. You're looking at a guy who is definitely the Lions QB going forward for the next 10 years. I don't think there's any doubt in that building. He's taken them back to an NFC Championship. He's brought them back to relevancy. Him and Dan Campbell, they don't do it without each other. They've got their guy, they've got their franchise QB. And I know there were some people saying, they've got to draft someone. They went and got Hendon Hooker in the draft. Is Hendon Hooker going to kind of take Goff's job? After this year, I don't see how he can. I don't see how there's any question in Detroit who their QB is going forward. He is a franchise QB, and I'm going to be bold here. I'm actually going to put him ahead of Dak. For me, For me,
Uh, oh
I'm
man.
picking Goff over Dak. You know, is that because I'm a Dak hater? Maybe. I like Dak as a person, but quite frankly, like I said it, the difference between the elite and the elite of the elite is the ability to win in the big stages. How many NFC championships has Dak gone to?
None. You'd be answer.
Exactly.
Zero. It'd be
Exactly. How
zero.
many Super Bowls has Dak got
Well,
to?
granted, Dak Prescott. Look, I'm not saying but I'm not saying Dak Prescott isn't the reason for the fact that the Cowboys couldn't go all the way. Let's just put it like this: Dak Prescott has had to deal with a lot, including the fact that his defense, quite frankly, yes, it does a lot during the regular season. During the postseason, it seems to be come up so small. And granted, that was not the case last year when they were in the divisional round against the Niners. But man, like I feel like the defense leaves a lot to be desired. That being said, I'm not going to disagree with you with Jared Goff and Dak Prescott.
I just think
I can't really because Jared Goff has seen so much success in the playoffs. Like even
he's also handled so much more adversity in the league that Dak has.
Right.
I mean, Dak came on in fourth round or whatever is later in the draft. Goff had to bounce back from that situation in LA. You know, that situation was handled really, really poorly, and you know that's probably going to weigh on his mind a little bit. And then to go and beat the Rams in the playoffs this year with the storyline of that, all the pressure, all the lights on him, to take Detroit, you know, with all the pressure and all the focus on him there, and take them to the NFC Championship, and actually to put them in a position where they probably could have won that game or should have won that game. You know, it's not just Detroit has the better team than Dallas. They haven't had the better team. If you look at Dak's best team compared to the Detroit Lions this year, they're very similar. You know, actually, talking about the two teams this year, they're pretty similar. And I just think Goff, any day, if you're going to put one above the other, I'm going to pick the QB that has gone to a Super Bowl and gone to NFC Championships and actually has made playoff runs. Because, you know, maybe Dak's better in the regular season. Maybe his stats are better. But quite frankly, Goff has more results in the big moments that matter. And at the end of the day, it's a sport where the QB is the most important position. You win or you lose with the QB. That's how it is. And Goff has wins when it matters. And I don't think you can necessarily argue that, you know, Dak still has that asterisk, and he will have that for the entirety of his career until he finally gets rid of it, until he finally makes a run. I mean, we're not asking for a Super Bowl of Dak. I'm not even saying he's got to win it. I'm just saying, at least make it to the NFC Championship. At least do something. At least make some noise. And he's not done that, so I can't put him above Goff.
Yeah, I mean, look, like Dak Prescott, I still think he still has time to get it done. I really do, but like, what exactly do the Cowboys really need to change? It feels like every single time we see the Cowboys like make a change, it just doesn't stick. On to Joe Burrow. And I don't think this should be a debate. I think Joe Burrow is a top 5 QB. I think he 1,000% deserves to be in the top 5 QB ranking. Look, I understand. Is he injury prone? That's a question for another day. But when he plays, damn it, he becomes a top 5 QB. There's no question about it. So I really don't have anything much else to say. He needs to stay healthy. I'll say that. Like it feels like he has gotten less criticism for not staying healthy than, say, a Baker Mayfield when he's not healthy. When he wasn't healthy and he played through it, he got a lot of criticism. And I didn't really appreciate that. So, look, straight up, I think there are so many injury-prone QBs in the NFL that just don't get set other chances. Joe Burrow is that good. He went to a Super Bowl and 2 AFC championships, for crying out loud. But he's got to stay healthy, man. I feel like, you know, the conversation with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow are completely different, considering exactly when it comes to being injury prone. Yeah.
I mean, Joe Burrow is definitely top 5. There's no doubt about that. The only real conversation to have about Joe Burrow is where in that top 5 does he sit? You know, coming into this season, I had him and Mahomes actually pretty close 1 and 2. You know, Lamar's obviously had that MVP season this year, and Joe Burrow got hurt. And yes, you can say he's injury prone, And I think that's an issue that the franchise needs to fix. I think they need to go and get him some better protection. Obviously, Torres ACL in the first season, that's tough to watch. And then they went and got Jamar Chase for the next year, and he boomed. He had a massive breakout, and he kind of cemented himself as a game changer, as an elite of the elite, as a guy who can do it all. And at the end of the day, he's the only guy that's still in the league that can beat Mahomes.
Yeah.
Outside of who else? Lamar couldn't do it this year.
Well, Tom Brady technically did, but
if Tom Brady was still playing, he'd go straight to number one. He would be better than Mahomes. If he came out of retirement, he'd go.
That's not true, but that's not true. But that's not true. But
just because you're a Dolphins fan,
we'll stick to. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Look, we'll stick with Joe Burrow here. Oh my God, get that down, bro. Tom Brady is literally 45 years old. I don't want to hear it from you. All right, look, Joe Burrow, franchise QB. What are we doing here, man? Put him in the too soon to tell tier ranking, if anything.
He's got a future ahead of him, Brady.
Yeah, for real. Oh man, future Hall of Famer. Look, Joe Burrow is top 5. I don't think there's any argument.
Yeah.
Derek Carr, man. This is such a difficult one for me because I really do like Derek Carr. He's such a good leader, in my opinion. His play, though, is just so mid, bro. It's so unbelievably mid. I'm going to say this. I think he goes in the game manager tier. I still think he's good enough to be in the game manager tier. I just feel like he's been given the opportunities, and it just has not worked. He got a really bad hand in Las Vegas. I feel like the way Las Vegas handled that situation was bogus. For them to choose Josh McDaniels over Carr, and then just for them to fire Josh McDaniels literally 8 weeks into the season. Pretty damn pathetic. And now their head coach is now the interim head coach that they struck lightning in a bottle with. So I think Derek Carr would have thrived under Antonio Pierce, me personally, but unfortunately right now his future is kind of uncertain as a Saint. I think they might move off of him relatively soon. But in my opinion, he's a game manager.
Yeah, I mean, Derek Carr for me these last few years, I've seen him probably in a better light than most have. I've been quietly confident in his abilities. We can agree the situation in Las Vegas was not good. Even when he was there, I think their ability to draft players, bring in talent, make good decisions as a front office is questionable.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah. And I think the situation he found himself in the Saints was a couple years too late. I mean, quite frankly, if he was on the Saints 2 years ago, we'd be talking about a guy who was a franchise QB. But right now, I think he's nearing the end of his career. So I'm not going to put him in franchise QB because I don't necessarily know if he's got that future on the Saints. I know he's taken they've restructured his contract, but the Saints have a mess of a cap space right now. They're shedding players. Michael Thomas is going to go. It's difficult. He's finally got an elite defense, and I think there is always going to be teething pains when it comes to moving from the Raiders to the Saints and those two different organizations and how they're run and the expectations there and the culture. And I think he didn't have an awful year, I don't think, by any stretch of the imagination. But I just don't think he's reached the ceiling yet with the Saints. And I'm actually kind of excited to see how he plays next year. I think he'll play in the Saints. I think he'll take a step up because I think he'll be another year in the system, another year with the players and the culture and the environment. I think he'll have more success. Is he the future of that team? No, he's definitely not. He has every chance to be a good player. He could even help them make a playoff run. The NFC South is quite weak. We know this. But the Saints are in such of a mess right now with their cap space. And I think he's going to struggle. And I think he needs to do his best to force some wins. I don't know if he can. It depends. We'll see. He's for me got one of the biggest question marks going into next season out of all these quarterbacks because we don't know. I mean, he was in a difficult division with the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Broncos. And then he got into the NFC South, and there is a difficult situation. I think he's never been in a situation that has necessarily helped him thrive. But look, he's poised for a bounce back next season if the Saints do things right. So I'm I'm interested to see where he goes next year, what he does.
Yeah, Derek Carr is definitely. I'm rooting for Derek Carr. I think he needs a better head coach. I think the weapons are there. I think I'm a big Chris Olave guy. So I think
Absolutely.
Chris Olave. I think he had a good connection with Olave. It just feels like he needs a better play caller. It needs to, I think next year is going to be a step up. I agree. Now Drew Lock, man, I remember coming out of college the talents that this guy had, and they were right for ranking him in the second round because my goodness, it was just never meant to be. Drew Lock is now playing for the Seahawks as a backup for Geno Smith, and he had some good moments this year. I definitely did. He definitely did, but unfortunately, he's going to be a future career backup. I think he's going to be around. I think his talent is too good to be an insurance salesman. But a backup, I think, is a good mold for him. He proved that he could, when stepping up to the plate, that he was definitely, useful, unlike some backups who are just virtually useless.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look at Drew Lock, I really liked him coming out of college. I actually really wanted the Patriots to draft him in the first round because we didn't have a QB at that stage. And then he fell to the second. I was like, well, we can get him in the second round. And then he ultimately went to Denver. And, I like the player. I like the guy. He's clearly a great presence in the locker room. You saw kind of, the clips of him and Geno Smith on the sideline when, he was playing this year. The guys like him. He's a great locker room guy by everything you see on TV and everything you hear. Like, there's nothing bad you hear about Drew Lock. He carries himself well. He's got some, fun swagger about him on the game days. That's the kind of guy you want in your building. So he's definitely going to be a career backup. Is it too soon to tell if he's going to get a chance? Well, for me, if I'm looking at the Seahawks and I see all these mock drafts about go and get Michael Penix in a second, or JJ McCarthy or Bo Nix or someone like that, for me, that makes not much sense because you've got a guy, Drew Lock, who's not exactly old, who is, yes, he's still a project. Is he a future career backup? Probably. I'm going to put him there. But at the same time, I'm not going to be stunned if at some stage the Seahawks actually give him a chance to win that starting job. I don't think his story's done yet. But I like the guy. I think he's going to have, if he leaves Seattle, he's going to have options. And wherever he goes, he's that type of guy that's going to compete regardless. So I don't think he necessarily is going to care too much about, people calling him a backup or anything. So his mindset is he's going there to help. He's also going there to compete and be a good teammate. And, don't be surprised if, Geno Smith, things continue to regress there. The Seahawks could just give him a chance. People clearly like him. I don't see why not.
Well, my entire problem with that is that I feel like he's had chances, and the chances that he's gotten, he's proven time and time again that he makes his own headed mistakes, and Geno just doesn't. Geno plays it safe, and sometimes that's to Geno's demise. But also, like, taking care of the football goes a long way. It really does.
Absolutely.
So, we'll get to Geno in a second. Where
he will never be a game manager. Let's be honest. He'll either be a franchise QB or a backup. Yeah. He will never be a game manager. That's just him, though.
But I don't think Drew Lock is capable of being a franchise QB either. He's just going to be a future. I think he's going to be a backup for the rest of his career. I think the story of Drew Lock,
if I was putting money on it, absolutely,
is just backup. Baker Mayfield, on the other hand, this is going to be a very polarizing one because I think Baker Mayfield is a franchise QB. I agree. I think Baker Mayfield proved a lot of doubters wrong. Now I'm going to put him behind Dak. We're putting him behind Dak. We're putting him behind Dak, Lawrence. There's no way we're doing that.
For now. Who knows?
For now we are. Granted, Baker Mayfield has won some playoff games, 2 of them, but Dak Prescott has won his fair share as well. So I still think
he's actually won less than Baker. I'll be honest.
Actually, he might have.
Quite possibly.
Baker Mayfield has 2 playoff wins. I think Dak has like 3 I think Dak is like 3. He has to have like 3, right? Okay, it was the one against the what is it? I know the one against
you actually having to think about this is just proving me right about
that. Hold on. I could just be blanking out. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have to give me a second. Look, the Cowboys.
You do that. I'll do my spiel on what I think about
Yeah,
Baker. I mean, look,
yeah. Go
the
ahead,
guy
man.
came into Tampa and had very low expectations around him of what people think he would do. He should have won comeback player of the year in my opinion. He should definitely re-sign to Tampa, or come to New England. But look, he's definitely a franchise QB. I mean, he was drafted 1 overall by the Browns. Tough ask for anyone. I mean, talk about a dumpster fire of an organization to get drafted to. I can't necessarily put that on him. I'm not surprised he's had more success elsewhere. He bounced around the Panthers, the Rams. He's found a home in Tampa. I think he needs to re-sign there. I think they'll give him a reasonable contract, not too much, so they can put talent around him. And I think he'll have another good year next year. Baker Mayfield has the talent and he has the demeanor and he has the personality. He just never found the right situation for him. And I think he now has. And I think, ultimately stepping into Brady's boots, tough ask, but he rose to the challenge. He took him to the playoffs in a weak NFC South, albeit, but he still did it and he still won a playoff game. So I don't think you can knock him.
He definitely exceeded
franchise QB.
He definitely exceeded expectations.
Yeah, 100%.
I just looked it up, and the Cowboys have indeed only won 2 playoff games since Dak's tenure. So, Dak Prescott, you're on the clock, buddy, because with the amount of turmoil that Baker Mayfield, don't you dare do it. No, I'm not doing that yet.
Baker did it with the worst team.
No, Dak Prescott was an MVP candidate, Lawrence. We're not going to do this, man. We're not doing this. Okay, look, I understand last year Baker Mayfield was without a job. He was barely without a job. I'm not going to put him over Dak Prescott yet. I think I'm going to let this season play out to see if Baker Mayfield
It's close, though. It's closer than it should be.
It's definitely a lot closer than a lot of people think. I'll say that. I think Dak Prescott is still better, though. Zach Wilson, future career insurance salesman. Look, I love Zach Wilson. I think there's room for him to grow. Actually, you know what? No. I'm going to go a different route here. I think it's too soon to tell with Zach Wilson.
I agree. Look, I was about to say.
Look, Zach Wilson is one of those players who has been dealt a bad hand, who's trash. Right now, he's garbage. Let's make this very clear. He's garbage. But that situation in New York was one of the worst situations in the NFL. Okay, Aaron Rodgers comes in, is supposed to mentor Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is supposed to learn from Aaron Rodgers for the next 2 years. And then he's supposed to take the mantle for the rest of the time. Now, was that going to happen? I don't know. I would not have believed in it.
That was never.
I still think that the scenery in New York, the toxic scenery, the management being so dumb, bending over backwards for Aaron Rodgers for what exactly? I don't know. I think Zach Wilson needs a change of scenery. So for that reason, I'm going to put too soon to tell. It's his third. It's going to be come up to his, I believe, 4th year in the league. I think he deserves another shot to back some people up and try to develop. See if he can become the talent that a lot of people thought he'd become. He was very raw coming out of college, was not worthy of the second overall pick. But I feel like that was kind of the league doing that to him rather than Zach Wilson doing it to him. I think he's grown a lot as a character. I think he's gotten better. So I'm going to leave it to too soon to tell for now. I think there's a lot for Zach Wilson to prove still.
I mean, I look at Zach Wilson and I look at this list and I think, what's the difference between him and Drew Lock? Drew Lock's in the future career backup category. Zach Wilson's not, and that's for a reason, right? Drew Lock is an asset to the QB rooms he's in. Zach Wilson, we have reports of him not wanting to start after being benched this season. Look, New York, the Jets is a bad situation to find yourself in as a rookie QB. We know this. We've seen it so many times, and I think he was never going to have success with that situation. I knew as soon as he was picked 2nd overall to the Jets, he was going to be a bust. But look, he finds himself in the too soon to tell category. But for me, he's in the back end of that. I think it's too soon to tell if he's going to be out of the league or if he's going to be a backup. Is he going to be a franchise QB? No, I don't think a single person is going to say he has a chance to be a starting QB in this league and be a franchise guy. I think his ceiling is going to be a backup. and a backup that maybe, bounces around and helps teams get wins when they absolutely need it. I don't see him being a starter. I just think he's too damaged. He's too damaged goods. He's put too much bad stuff on tape. And then there's question marks about how he carries himself in the building, with not wanting to start, which is not a good look. But look, too soon to tell. But for me, he's trending nearer down here than anywhere else. But look, we'll see. I mean, I think people saying, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers is going to mentor him," was ambitious. We know that's not Aaron Rodgers' kind of style. He got injured and then went out of the building. Wasn't around the team, I don't think, for a long stretch when he was getting surgery and then rehabbing and doing all this other stuff. So I think Zach Wilson's going to have a tough job trying to learn anything from Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers is either going to be focusing on starting or he's going to be focusing on himself. So look, I think he needs a fresh start. He needs to get out of New York. He needs to go elsewhere. He needs to go stand behind someone who's actually going to help him, and he could be a very solid backup.
Yeah, I don't think Aaron Rodgers
organization.
I don't think Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers did teach Jordan Love relatively well. I think the atmosphere in New York is very different from the atmosphere in Green Bay. I think there's room to teach in Green Bay. There's no room to teach in a market like New York. And I think Zach Wilson needs to learn from somebody somewhere, a smaller market for sure, and somebody to, tell him when to calm down, right? And really mentor him. I feel like Aaron Rodgers is too much baggage to be a mentor right now.
Yeah.
He wasn't. It's fine to have baggage in Green Bay because Green Bay is a small, it's a very, what is there to really do in Green Bay? In New York, that's the media capital of the world. Yeah. So anything that happens in New York is going to come out. So Zach Wilson's going to be fine, I think. I don't think he's going to be out of the NFL. I think he could be a starter. I really do. I just don't think it's going to be in the situation of, I think he needs to learn a couple years for sure. I think that's what should have been like what the QB classes of this year are, right? You're going to learn a couple years and then you're going to become a starter. Yeah. So Trevor Lawrence, on the other hand, was a number 1 overall pick. And let me tell you, Trevor Lawrence, as the generational talent that he was proclaimed to be, he's definitely been a bit disappointing. With that being said, he is without a doubt a franchise QB, and I would take him over all of the QBs that are listed right now. So Trevor Lawrence, I think, has been this past year dealt with a lot of issues around the offensive line, with his receivers. Straight up, I think Jacksonville was overrated coming into the year last year. We overrated him at House Call. A lot of people overrated him. And right now, it's looking like, it really is looking like, CJ Stroud and Trevor Lawrence are going to be neck and neck for that division for years to come. Yeah. Trevor Lawrence, I think last year definitely would have been considered at top 5, but right now I don't think that is the case whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, let's just write off his rookie year. Urban Meyer, right. Let's just write it off. Never happened, right? Okay. He's a franchise QB. The Jags will pay him as such, and he will stay there for a reason. He definitely is a franchise guy. Am I going to put him above Goff and Dak? For me, that's a little bit too steep. At the end of the day, near the top of the list, you're looking at guys who got it done, and you look at the roster they had this year. I was very high on the Jags for good reason, and I think the fact that they didn't get it done, Trevor Lawrence has not had a spectacular season. He's not been bad. He's had a decent year, but he's not been spectacular. He's not been anything to shout home about. And I think at the end of the day, if you're looking at Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, for me, I'm putting him about there, maybe above Baker. But then again, Baker's won playoff games. And for me, a lot of this is going to come down to, can they get it done in the big moments? Can they get it done when the talent around them is at its best? Jags this year, super disappointing. Couldn't make it to the playoffs. No one could have seen what the Texans were going to do coming. But at the end of the day, that was the Jags' the division to win. And they didn't get it done. And they missed the playoffs. And I think a lot of that comes down to the QB shoulders. Trevor Lawrence, he's a franchise guy. But I think he's near the middle of it.
Absolutely, and I still think Trevor Lawrence is still gonna become at some point a top 5 QB in the NFL. But right now, his situation is less than ideal. They're about to lose Calvin Ridley. I don't know if they have a high enough draft pick to get a receiver that's really game change. It's going to change the game, and the wide receiver market in free agency is cooked. It just is.
Yeah.
So I definitely think not hard times for the Jags, but definitely times that they thought they were over are still there, and that's mostly because of that man CJ Stroud and potentially another QB that we're going to discuss in a bit. Jalen Hurts, on the other hand, had a very interesting season. Again, Jalen Hurts, for whatever reason, it's really between franchise QB and game manager, and quite frankly, I'm leaning more towards franchise QB only because he does so much better than any game manager really could do. I think Jalen Hurts, the way he could use his legs, he has a nice deep ball. His only issue was reading zone coverage this year, and I think that was his downfall. It also doesn't help that the play calling this year was very vanilla for Jalen Hurts. Brian Johnson is out of there, so I'm expecting a different. I'm definitely expecting a better year from Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I'm going to lean franchise QB right now. I think Jalen Hurts is still, a great talent. I definitely think he's I still think he needs to grow a bit as a passer. I think he regressed this year as a passer compared to last year. He definitely needs to grow a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he's a franchise QB. They're paying him like a franchise QB because he is one. He's regressed this year. We know this. And I think, considering the fact he regressed, they still had one hell of a year in the regular season. They just fell off. The wheels fell off. That's all it was. And it didn't help that, he had one of the worst secondaries in the league on his team. I think he's proven that, with the play call that was in place, they couldn't win shootouts, and they weren't built for that. And they struggled down the road. And that's what happens to some teams that get off to a hot start.
Right.
Is that necessarily all on Hurts? No. I mean, we know the play calling was an issue. We know the defense was an issue. And we know things are going to have to change if they're going to want to stay at the top of the game as a team. I think Hurts is a major piece of the puzzle, and I think he's actually one of the bright spots. I think he's nearer to game manager after this season than he is top 5. But quite frankly, he's a franchise QB, and we're both sitting here expecting him to go off next year. If that doesn't happen, then it's a different conversation. But right now, one down year on a team that actually your biggest weakness was your ability to not concede points. I don't see how that falls on Hurts. I don't see how that knocks him out of the franchise QB category. I think he's better than Dak. I think he's better than Baker. I think he's better than Trevor Lawrence. I'm picking Jared Goff because, well, quite frankly, I just prefer Jared Goff. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. I think Jared Goff played better this year. I don't think anyone's really going to question that. Jalen Hurts, though, has the ceiling of top 5. He was top 5 last year. His ceiling's there.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's got a higher ceiling than Jared Goff. I just think Jared Goff played significantly better this season. And I think there are question marks about Hurts, so there aren't question marks about Goff. How is he going to do with Jason Kelce gone? Is he going to step up into that leadership role? Is he going to transform himself into the heartbeat of that team that Kelce was? All things he should be doing and should be trying to do and establish himself in that locker room. Can he have the success he had last year, next year? We don't know. He's still a franchise QB. Can he move up? Can he move down? He can go either direction for me.
Right, absolutely. Let's discuss this though, and I do think that Jalen Hurts needs a discussion when it comes to this. If he does regress again, what does Philly really do at that point, right? Like, Philly can't really do much, and it becomes to the point where you paid this man that much money, and he's beginning to regress. That situation, if he does regress, that's going to be an ugly situation in Philly, especially with the way Philly handle it. Now, if we're discussing Russell Wilson from the Seahawks, he's probably going to be in the top 5. Unfortunately, we're discussing Russell Wilson from the Broncos, and he's nothing more than a game manager. So, quite frankly, Russell Wilson is one of those players that he was released this past week by the Broncos. Got paid a buttload of money to be absolutely mid. It's a shame. It really is a shame, but this is the world we live in now. We live in a world where Russell Wilson is neither respected nor really wanted that much as, he used to be. And, I remember when he was sent to Denver in that trade, that blockbuster trade that Denver absolutely lost, that a lot of people thought that Denver would become an elite team. And here we are, and I don't know, man. Russell Wilson seems very washed.
Yeah, I mean, he was brought to Denver to beat Mahomes, and less than 2 seasons, because he got benched, less than 2 seasons after making that big trade, he's gone. And that's astounding to me. And I think, is he a game manager? I think that's a little bit harsh. If we're talking about Russell Wilson of last year, I'd say just retire already, because he was awful last year. But actually, as a player this year, he had a much better second season in Denver than he did in the first year. And is that down to a coaching change? Absolutely. But quite frankly, at the end of the day, Sean Payton didn't like him. And Sean Payton, they gave up a first-round draft pick or whatever it was to go and get him from the Saints. It was his decision. At the end of the day, it was his decision. And he didn't like Russell Wilson, so Russell Wilson's gone. And they're now stuck in a very difficult situation where they're paying him way too much money to not be on the team. So yeah, for me, at the moment, I'm tempted to put him in game manager. But I could also see him being at the back end of here. Right now, it's just unknown. Where's he going to fall?
I think the days of Russell Wilson being a franchise QB are done, man. I've seen too much from. I've seen the last 2 years.
He's fallen off so significantly. I don't know what's caused that. I mean, first year in Denver was a bad situation. Awful head coach, and it wasn't the right fit for him. We will see, because we've only ever seen him on the Seahawks, where he was definitely in that top 5 conversation for a lot of the time there, and the Broncos last year, where he was in that we should retire conversation. And now we don't actually know what's next for him. He could find himself in Pittsburgh with a better situation, or elsewhere. I don't know who else he's been linked to. New York Giants, I've seen. Look, he can now afford to take a cheap contract with a team that has talent, and he could very well see a resurgence. I don't know. He's getting old. Regressions to be expected at this stage. Game manager. I mean, I almost want to put him in too soon to tell because of the situation that he's in. He's not even on a team right now. I don't know if he finds himself in a better situation, could he recapture that Seattle magic? That's a valid argument. Right now, we'll keep him in game manager, but he could go up or down on that list, man.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what can be said about Russell Wilson is not the case for Matthew Stafford. He did not regress. Last year really was just a situational problem. This past year, he straight up played like, in my opinion, he played like the top 5 QB. He played so well. And despite the fact that I'm not going to put him in that ranking because I do think other QBs are better, I think Matthew Stafford has cemented himself as a franchise QB for at least the next 3 years. He just has such talent. What he was able to do with Puka Nacua, with Cooper Kupp in years before, with Puka Nacua this year, it was more impressive. Now, I want to credit Puka Nacua, give him credit where credit is due. Matthew Stafford overall had just an amazing year. So I would put him in a franchise QB, and I take him personally over all these QBs that are on the list. I take him over Trevor Lawrence. I take him over Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts. I am that high on Matthew Stafford. I don't see any regression with Sean McVay happening. So give me Matthew Stafford as a franchise QB. I think he's a top 7 QB right now.
I agree. I think, he's a QB that makes players around him better. You saw how, the receivers around him had better statistics as soon as he joined when Jared Goff left. He is a better quarterback than Jared Goff. He is a game changer. I don't think he's top 5, and I don't know how long he's going to have left in this league. He is getting onto the older side of the spectrum. But right now, he's a franchise QB, and I agree. Right now, he is better than Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, and everyone else on that list, other than Joe Burrow. He's a hell of a player. He's a hell of a locker room guy, and he makes people better around him. So I don't think anyone can argue that he's not a franchise guy, and he will continue to be at the top end of the league in terms of production and success for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's definitely what I would assume that Matthew Stafford does, especially if nothing changes and if they get another receiver. I think the fact that Sean McVay can just draft a receiver and they become elite is utterly insane. Now, Kirk Cousins is a very interesting situation because Kirk Cousins is coming off an Achilles injury, but yet he is 1,000%, in my opinion, a franchise QB. I don't think I would take him. I definitely think he was dealt a bad hand because in years prior, yes, he would come up small, but whenever he came up big, the defense wouldn't pull up for him. And now when the defense gets better this year, he gets out for the season. Justin Jefferson's battered down. It's just very unfortunate. If Kirk Cousins stays in Minnesota with Justin Jefferson and that defense, you guys got to watch out for Minnesota, man. It's going to be a much better team than in years prior. I would put him over franchise QB. Definitely in the middle of this list of franchise QBs that are there right now. Look, man, like straight up, he was dealt a bad hand, and he has so much swag. He deserves a Super Bowl, in my opinion. I love Kirk Cousins. I'm a big Kirk O'Chains guy. So absolutely. I think he's 1,000% a franchise QB.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Kirk Cousins, when he's healthy, is one of the best and most prolific passers we can have in this league, especially him with Justin Jefferson. The guy's a baller. There's no doubt about that. It's just not, can he win primetime games? I think that's a harsh narrative. But, you know, at the same time, it's the thing that holds him back from being anywhere near that top 5 conversation. He's a franchise QB. There's no doubt about that in my mind. For me, when he's healthy, I'm putting him above Hurts. And I'm tempted to even put him above Goff when he's healthy, actually. And I'm going to stand on that because, look, you look at the stats that he's put up when he's healthy, he's incredible. And I don't see why on earth Minnesota would think about moving off from him. I don't know why they haven't extended him. I understand they want to get younger, but it's not like Kirk Cousins is playing at a bad level or showing any signs of slowing down. He had a bad injury. It happens. Justin Jefferson had an injury. It happens. And I think next year, you know, if they play their cards right, they could be a very difficult team to play against. So I think he's definitely in that top 7 for me right now, out of all the QBs in that list. He just needs to get healthy. And is the Kirk Cousins we're going to get back the same? We don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And now next up, we're here. It's Tua time, and unfortunately for me, it's not necessarily a taste that I want to taste right now. Look, Tua, in my opinion, he's my favorite player as a Dolphins fan, my favorite QB football player ever. And unfortunately, he left a bad taste in everybody's mouth this past playoffs, a complete dud against the Chiefs. I'm going to call him a franchise QB because that's what he is. He is a franchise QB. He's the Miami Dolphins franchise QB. I don't think he is worse than any of the QBs he is that much worse than any of the franchise QBs that are on the table right now. I definitely don't think he's top 10. I definitely think he's top 15. Look, Tua Tagovailoa has gotten better each year he's been in the league. The only problem is that he's gotten better on different aspects. It's been his talent some years, then it's his health, and now it needs to be kind of the best of both worlds next year, or a lot of people are going to say that the decision that Miami could potentially be making of giving him the max is one of the biggest mistakes they could potentially make in their franchise history. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think that Tua Tagovailoa is the QB for the Dolphins. I think he's going to lead us to some playoff wins. I genuinely do. And he's still young. I don't think there's no room for him to grow. The problem is that can he do it? And he has the weapons to do it. I don't know if he's going to have the offensive line to do it, but I believe in Tua better than a lot of people believe in Tua, clearly. It could be my bias as a Dolphins fan. I don't think a game manager necessarily describes Tua Tagovailoa, especially with the season that he had.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna make this nice and quick. I think we both know where I'm gonna go with this.
Yeah.
Look, no, in all seriousness, he's a franchise QB. He shouldn't be paid the top of the market.
I agree.
And I don't think anyone's gonna say that. I think he is their guy, and I think the Dolphins need to be careful because I think they could find themselves quite quickly in a situation of it's not always greener on the other side. You have a guy who has been pretty successful this season. Is he a guy that is going to drag you kicking and screaming through the playoffs to the AFC Championship? No. Are you going to pay him like that? Probably. It's Miami. You're going to make a mistake there. Look, Tua is good when he's got pieces around him on offense. He's good when he's got Mike McDaniels. He is progressively getting better. There is no doubt about that. I just don't think he should get paid top end money. I think right now, if I'm looking at that list, I think he's at the back end of franchise QB. And I think there are some guys on that list that I'd rather have. I know he's your favorite player, and you're going to be biased because ultimately you're not going to move off Tua. But I'm taking Trevor Lawrence, and I'm probably going to take Baker Mayfield over Tua. I'd want to move back down that list personally, but you wanted him above Baker and above Trevor.
I've definitely toned down on the Tua glazing, so to speak. I think Tua Tagovailoa is capable 1,000%. But it's in the big games that he has to step up. It's the same issue with Dak Prescott, really. So, with that being said, Tua is a franchise QB, whether the haters like it or not. Now, Lamar Jackson, throw him in top 5. I don't think there's really
not much that really needs to be said, does there? Like he's the MVP, 2-time MVP.
MVP equals top 5.
Chiefs. Yeah, but top five. Enough said.
1,000%. And I will say this about Lamar Jackson: there's still a lot that needs to be done with him. I feel like the fact that he only has 2 playoff wins, the same amount as Dak Prescott, not ideal. The same amount as Baker Mayfield, like I said, not ideal. So,
he's definitely below Joe.
Yeah, he's an elite talent, but
he's top 5.
He needs to be, a lot better than what he's shown lately. Now, Daniel Jones, we might agree. Danny Dimes, man. I think he's a future career backup.
Yeah, I agree.
We're agreeing a lot today. I don't know what that's
unusual,
about.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's not really usually, but I think Daniel Jones right now is just being paid $50 million, and the Giants are actively looking for a replacement. I expect him to be released very soon. I'm not a believer. I'll go ahead and say it. I've never been a believer in Daniel Jones. I think the hype last year was it was a fluke. 15 passing touchdowns, not really much to say anything about. Brian Daboll did all he could. He really did all he could with Daniel Jones.
I get it, Daniel Jones. Wide receivers.
Yeah. And
they tried, and the GM wins.
He absolutely hasn't. But given the fact that he's had an elite play calling head coach like Brian Daboll, I think Brian Daboll's a great play caller.
Oh yeah,
I think Brian Daboll could have done something, and not Brian Daboll. Daniel Jones should have been able to, not regress like he did this year. So
absolutely,
I get it. The offensive line was bad, but I don't see anything special about Daniel Jones. I don't. Same with Jimmy G. I think he's a backup as well. I don't think I think career insurance salesman is up there for sure.
Really?
I think he's still good enough to be a backup. I think a backup is definitely where he is. I'm not going to be.
You're going to get it. I'm putting him there. You talk about game manager. The definition of a game manager under the dictionary is a picture of Jimmy G. Right? He has literally game managed a team to a Super Bowl. He is the definition of it. When he's healthy, he is definitely in that conversation. He can be a starter. There's no doubt about that in my mind. He went to you're going to count him out because of how he played in the Las Vegas Raiders. Come on.
Yes, absolutely.
Josh McDaniels was the reason why he had no success there. The reason why no one on the team had success.
Well, why didn't Antonio Pierce go back to Jimmy G?
He wasn't the right fit. They paid him too much money. He wasn't the right fit in Las Vegas.
Look, but if you have Devontae
you're talking about a game manager. He's a game manager. He will manage a team to victories. He won't change the game. He also won't necessarily lose you the game unless he tears his Achilles again. He's the definition of game manager.
I think calling him a game manager next to Derek Carr, who's an active NFL starter, I think right now, if you ask yourself, would I prefer Derek Carr or Jimmy G, 1,000% you'd.
Oh yeah, same. I'm not saying he's
the same with Russell Wilson.
I put him behind Russell Wilson because he's at the back end of game manager, but he's still a game manager.
You really think
Derek Carr is better.
So you take Jimmy G over Daniel Jones?
What, for the Patriots?
Oh, I mean, absolutely for the. But
Yeah.
like, let's say pound for pound, right? Pound for pound, you would take Daniel Jones or Jimmy G over Daniel
For
Jones.
the future, no, but for the time being, for like, as a bridge player, as someone to manage the game to get us wins, yes, 100%. You can't tell me Daniel Jones is more of a game manager than Jimmy G is. Daniel Jones has turnover issues. Jimmy G has injury issues. That's the difference.
I don't know, man. I feel like Jimmy
managers
G
take care of the ball and they do what is necessary. He had success in San Francisco when he was a system QB because he was a game manager, and then he went to Las Vegas and he had to be more than a game manager, and he wasn't. He is a game manager. He's not a franchise QB. He's also not a backup. He is the definition of a game manager. He is the prototypical game manager.
I don't think any of the NFL teams are looking to bring in Jimmy G other than to be a bridge. Yep. I would say Daniel Jones, at least for Daniel Jones, it's because I don't believe in him. They'd try to get Daniel Jones to be a starter because of how old he is. I think he has younger upside, and there's room for Daniel Jones to grow at least a little bit. With Jimmy G, he is what he is, and I don't think there's much value in that.
But I mean, to be fair, they haven't cut him yet. I don't know what they're going to do with him.
They should.
He's still on their roster. And
they really should.
They benched him. And then I've seen nothing since they've benched him. He's still on the roster. He's still in the QB room. He's still helping out.
No, they're probably going to keep him to develop whatever QB that they're going to draft. Probably.
Yeah. And do you know what? He'll probably be a game manager elsewhere.
I don't know, man. I'm not as high on Jimmy G. We'll meet in the middle.
I think he'll be a trade candidate for next season if a starting QB gets injured and they think they're in a shot of having a chance at a Super Bowl. Right. I'm thinking if a Josh Allen gets injured or if like a Mahomes gets injured out for the season, I think he's like a guy they'll trade for to put in that situation because at least he gives him a chance. I'm not saying he's guaranteed to get him wins, but if you're looking at the free agent quarterbacks, if you're within a Super Bowl window, you are getting Jimmy G, not Daniel Jones or Drew Lock. That's
I guess, man. Look, I'm not as high on Jimmy G. I know it's ironic.
I'm not high on him. I'm just not low on him either. That's what I'm saying. I'm dead in the middle. I'm saying he's just
Jimmy G. Like make no mistake. I definitely think Jimmy G still has merit in this league. I just don't think that when a team trades for him, it's, in my opinion, nothing more than to bridge the gap or to be a backup. And in my opinion, that's not necessarily a game manager. That's just being a backup QB that you conveniently have. So I would say Jimmy G would probably be the best of all the backup QBs, 1,000%. But I think he is right now a future backup. Gardner Minshew, though, is a bit of a different one. Because Gardner Minshew, I don't want to put him at game manager. Oh, of course. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Look, Gardner Minshew, I feel like, is a bridge QB. I'd put him at game manager, like the bridge between future career backup and game manager for sure. It's definitely a hard one with Minshew because he played relatively well. He played okay with Shane Steichen as his head coach for the Colts. So
he has no future on the Colts roster because they have Anthony Richardson. But out of all the starting QBs you got in this league, and he was a starter for the majority of the season, he was not the worst. And I think he was good on Jacksonville, Minshew Mania. I think he is probably the back end of game manager. He's smack bang in the middle between these two categories for me, and it's really hard for me to say he's a career backup because he's proven he can get wins as a starter. So I'm going to put him at the back end of game manager. I think it's really close, but I think there's something there. And I think if a team, again, like a Jimmy G, you need someone to step in and actually see if you can get any wins. If your starting QB gets injured, he's the guy you call. And I think people like him in the locker rooms. He's a funny guy. He's a chill dude, and he'll play well. And he won't be a franchise QB. I think his ceiling is game manager, absolutely. But yeah, he'll be a backup until he has to step in. At which point he'll be game manager. That's how I see him.
I agree. We're gonna speed run through these next two. I think Jordan Love is undisputed, the franchise QB. He's due for an extension, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Jordan Love has proven so much just this year, and with the receivers that he has, a young receiving core, a fun receiving core. I just think Jordan Love has proven so much. He played like a top 10 QB this year. So
Jordan Love was spectacular this year, with all the whispers around him and Aaron Rodgers and how that situation was handled. The GM of the Green Bay Packers just looked like he had a masterclass. To go from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love is exceptional, and I think he made the right pick. And I think the Packers have found their franchise QB, and it's annoying because they always have this. They went Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers.
They're always getting away with it too. They're always getting away with it. It's like
look, Jordan Love had a spectacular season. Even if he regresses slightly, he's still a franchise QB, and there's nothing to suggest that he should. I think he had a better year than anyone else on that list other than Goff. I think Kirk Cousins is for me slightly above him. But I mean, talk about if Cousins stays in the Vikings, that the NFC North with Jared Goff as well, is going to be a lot of fun to watch. So Jordan Love, he's definitely earned some respect, and I think we're going to do Aaron Rodgers now. Aaron Rodgers last season in Green Bay wasn't great. Jordan Love,
he wasn't even playing.
Had a lot of success.
He was out. So this is going to be a difficult one because I think we're going to have to put him at franchise QB because he's going to be their franchise for like 2 years after, assuming he does not get hurt. But who's to say he does not, right? Like who's to say he's not going to get hurt? So
this is exactly why I'm going to put him in. I think it is. We have not seen Aaron Rodgers on the Jets, and I think until we see what he looks like with a good sample size, he's too soon to tell. We don't know what he's going to be like on the Jets. We don't know what that Jets team is going to look like. We don't know if there's internal issues there. We hear the whispers of it. People, McCole Hardman is doing the absolute most on social media. Look, it's the definition of too soon to tell. I don't like Aaron Rodgers as a personality. From what I've seen, from what I've heard, has he got the talent? Obviously, he's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Oh, there's no doubt about
that. The only question to me is, which is why I put him in too soon to tell, not franchise, is an Achilles injury is pretty major, and he tried to come back this year, and that was a whole farce. He's too soon to tell. Is he still got it? A, is he going to be the same Aaron Rodgers after the injuries? B, and see what does Aaron Rodgers on the New York Jets look like in that scheme and that offense with that players and then in that locker room. I think we're still way too soon to tell. So I'm going to stick him there, and I'm pretty happy saying it's too soon to tell, but he's there on the franchise QB, and there's no doubt about that. He's definitely not game manager. I think he could be top 5 next season easily. And then Mahomes, yeah, let's just.
Mahomes is
straight away. I don't
the
like
greatest,
the
best QB of all time, ladies and gentlemen. It's just 1,000%. Like
don't make me put him back on the list. Don't make me do it.
Take Brady out of there. If I see Brady one more time, I'm gonna break my laptop. Look, Brady's the GOAT.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mahomes is the best. That's all I'm saying. Look, we're gonna move on now before we go into this entire shouting match, which I feel it coming. By the way, for Rodgers, I just want to say this before we move on. For Rodgers, the fact that you brought in all your buddies, got injured for the entire season, and your buddies stunk is crazy. That's just my opinion. Now, CJ Stroud, I'm genuinely debating this.
I know, because I'm reading your mind. I'm genuinely debating putting him top 5 as well.
CJ Stroud is like that, man. I think CJ Stroud is right there. I think he's right there. He played. And people are going to say we're overreacting here, but just understand, bias, 100%. Understand something. The Houston Texans were in a rebuilding year, and I guess you could say the same about Jordan Love.
Yeah.
But
I think Jordan Love got overshadowed a lot by CJ Stroud.
He absolutely did, but the difference is that CJ Stroud showed an elite clutch gene when it mattered most, and he won a playoff game significantly. Same as Jordan Love. They went up against I'll give Jordan Love this. He played better against the better teams. I'll give him that, but I still think CJ Stroud is in my opinion better. I think as a QB. So Look,
not
he's
picking
right
top
there in
5
my
yet.
opinion.
I
I know
think
it's a
he's
bit
right there.
hypocritical. It's a bit hypocritical with Love and Stroud. I actually think Love is more towards the top than a lot of these QBs. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But regardless, I think Stroud right now is right there, right at top 5. He's that good, man. He really is.
Pickett, on the other hand,
Pickett
for me,
is just.
I'm sticking him right here.
I'm
sticking him
actually going to disagree with you there. I'm not in on Pickett.
I was close to insurance salesman. I don't think the only caveat I would say is you got to give him benefit of the doubt. Matt Canada was ass, so I think you got to put him in 2 seed sale purely for that.
I am so not in on Pickett, but for the benefits, we're gonna me in the middle. I'm gonna put Tucson and tell. But I'm just saying, if he's trash this year with whatever new offensive coordinator they're bringing in, I'm pouncing on that. All right,
they'll bring in someone like Russell Wilson though.
Right, 1,000%. Will Levis is the same, but I think Will Levis has more upside, 1,000% on the
I think I'm going to put him slightly there. Desmond Ridder.
Right.
Again, we're through these now.
I'm backup. I don't want too soon to tell. No, backup. Like, there's so many games this past year that the Falcons could have won if Desmond Ridder wasn't like terrible. I swear.
And bang average. He's vanilla. There's nothing special about him.
I'm so glad Raheem Morris called this out during his press conference when he said, if we had a better QB play, we'd win a lot. I probably wouldn't be here. That is so spot on when it comes to Arthur Smith and his tenure in the Falcons and the decisions at QB that he made. We all were shouting from the mountaintops that Ridder was not the guy. Arthur Smith didn't listen to any of us, and now look at him. He's out of a job. So, quite frankly, kick rocks to Desmond Ridder. I think he's a backup. I think there's no question about it.
Yeah. I'm going to put him at the top of career backup. I am. I know he had productivity passing the ball this season.
He was really productive this past year.
But
he was.
For me, he didn't look like a starter. Everything suggests they're going to move off of him. I know Ron Rivera came out and said he's going to be our starter.
I'm leaning more
towards QB, but now Ron Rivera's not there.
I'm towards too soon to tell because I think Sam Howell played relatively well, man.
I think they trade him. I think they do. I think Sam Howell's you can't draft someone and then keep him. I think they trade him, but I think they'll trade him and he'll be a backup.
1,000%. Bryce Young
he's not near the top of the backups because I think as a young guy he's got a better chance than Jones, Locke, and Ridder as starting.
I agree. I would take Sam Howell over Daniel Jones in my opinion.
Bryce Young, definition of too soon to tell.
What a bad hand this young guy was dealt, man. What a terrible hand. I'm going to say this: his size does not help. His play did not help. But regardless of what you think, I don't think. What's
Coach did not help.
No kidding. 2 head coaches in his first year already, not ideal. Okay, so
shit situation.
My bad. 3 head coaches in 2 years now. So
it's tough. It's a tough ask. Richardson as well got hurt. I'm going to put him above. Above Bryce Young.
Richardson showed a lot. I think Richardson looks more like a franchise QB than Bryce.
But then again, Richardson, we all knew this was going to happen. We all knew he was going to get hurt. We all knew he's a runner. It's what happens.
But he has tremendous arm talent. We saw it. We all saw the arm talent.
So I'm happy to put him above Bryce Young. Brock Purdy again, man. That feels.
I'm going to be honest. I disagree. I think he's a franchise QB.
I think he's a franchise QB. But then again,
he went to the damn Super Bowl. Like, there's no really.
So did Jimmy G. That's the thing. You can't say Jimmy G's a career backup and then say, yeah, but Brock Purdy's the reason why they went to the Super Bowl when they pay CDP on the same team.
Well, here's the difference. There's a very big difference. There's a very big difference with the Jimmy Garoppolo Super Bowl run and the Brock Purdy Super Bowl run. If Jimmy G was put in the situations that Brock Purdy was put in this past year, Jimmy G would have crumbled. We saw that in the Super Bowl, and it was a benefit of the run game of that Niners team. At the end of the day, it was the benefit of that Niners run game. Raheem Mostert ran all over Green Bay. Jimmy G had 78 passing yards in that NFC Championship game. We got to put him in as a franchise QB.
Yeah, I'm not a hater on Brock Purdy. I actually like the guy. I like him. The game manager accusations are not unfounded. I will say that. But I would agree that I think it feels harsh to say he's a game manager when he just took a team to a Super Bowl. and he would have had 2 Super Bowl appearances if he didn't get injured in the NFC Championship. So I'm actually I'm going to put him above Hurts, Baker, and them lot because he got the wins.
Well, I would.
We'll see what he does.
With Hurts is crazy because Hurts and Purdy are relatively the same, like almost, except Purdy
Purdy's a better passer.
I would agree. I would definitely agree.
Yeah,
Josh
I'm
Allen.
happy sticking him there.
Josh Allen is one of the most polarizing players for whatever reason, and I don't understand why.
Josh Allen at his best is there.
He's better than Burrow at his best. I'm going to be honest.
I'm going to put him 4 because I maintain that I've got concerns about his ability to not turn the ball over. You pay him to be a gunslinger, and sometimes he wins you games, but he will also sometimes throw you games. He is versatile in the run game. He's an issue. He's definitely top 5, no doubt about that.
Right.
But he's not done anything. And the Bills they've been gutted. And they're going to be significantly worse next season. And I think Josh Allen is going to face his toughest task since he entered the league, which is, can he make the Bills good with a bad roster? He got better when the roster got more talented. And now he needs to prove, can he stay at that level? He's top 5. Right. I think he's 4. I think he's 4 or 5 for me.
I mean, at his best, I think Josh Allen is a top 2 QB. I think he's that good. It's just he does not have the track record that Burrow and Lamar have. I mean, even though Burrow is the one who actually beat Mahomes, which is why he's next to Mahomes right now. I think
he's very close to Dak to me. He's just Dak, but wins in the playoffs slightly more.
Yeah. Trey Lance did not start a game this year, so I don't know where we're going to rank him, but I'll be honest with you. Trey Lance is one of those players where it's just like, we can't really say too soon to tell because in all of his years, here's my thing with Trey Lance, right? I would argue he's too soon to tell because I actually don't think I've seen him play. I think I've seen him play one game when he was named the starter after they benched Jimmy G. He got hurt, and then the next season it was Brock Purdy's show. He's actually never started more than one regular season game, I don't think. It's crazy. He started more than one. It's just he got
hurt week 1. He got hurt week 1.
He got hurt week 2 last year.
But it's like, for me, too soon to tell is fair. But I also think, you're probably thinking more there than there. And I don't think that's fair. Because you haven't seen Trey Lance. We've seen Zach Wilson. You know Zach Wilson's shit.
He got beat out by Sam Darnold. We got to understand that. He got beat out by Sam Darnold. So,
but, that's why I'd put Sam Darnold there. Sam Darnold's a backup. Trey Lance I think it's too soon to tell. I honestly think it's too soon to tell. He's the backup now in Dallas. Right. So he is technically
Geno Smith, I'm going to be honest with Geno Smith. He's at the very front of game manager. I think he is right now. I would put him over Carr.
You would.
I think Geno Smith right now he's really a bridge QB in my opinion. Like I think the hype around Geno. I think Geno can win games. Can he win a Super Bowl? I just don't think so, man. I really don't. And I think that the Seahawks are gonna grow aware of this and they're gonna try to move off of him very soon, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So Geno Smith, I love you. You didn't write back that 1 year, but you wrote a little sentence back the very next one. So it's very
I'm gonna start with this one. I'm gonna go first here.
This is personal, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. A lot of people, I'm not gonna name names, think that I'm a massive Mac Jones fan. And I'm gonna speak on that for a bit. Look, Mac Jones made a Pro Bowl. You can't take that away from him. Yes, he was an ultimate, but he still made it. He's still a Pro Bowl QB. The situation that he found himself in New England was less than ideal, right? And I'm going to compare him here to Trevor Lawrence, right? Rookie season, Mac Jones made the Pro Bowl. Trevor Lawrence was awful. The Jaguars did something to fix it. They got rid of Urban Meyer. They got Doug Peterson, and Trevor Lawrence had a better second year. What did the Patriots do? They go and get Matt Patricia as their offensive coordinator, who's a defensive coordinator. And from what you've seen and what he did in the Eagles this season, he's not necessarily the best one out there. So, look, for me, I'm not going to say Mac Jones is a franchise QB, obviously. I think at his best, he is top of game manager. at his best.
I don't like that at all.
But I'm gonna be realistic. He's regressed. He's damaged goods. He should be traded. I am gonna, however, stick him right there above Zach Wilson. I think it's too soon to tell.
Hell no.
I'm not gonna say he's a future career backup, even though he probably will be.
What Mac Jones, with all due respect to Mac Jones, his situation was not good.
I will die on this hill, by the way.
His situation was not good. No. This man made his situation so much worse. So much worse. I need to reiterate this. Yes, he had terrible weapons. And if he goes to a new situation, maybe he thrives in it. But right now, from the track record that we've seen, he's a backup. And hell, he's an insurance salesman right now, if we're being honest. So
that's what I'm saying is too soon to tell, because you don't know if he's going to be backup insurance salesman or game manager. He could literally easily be either three of those. He's not a game manager,
because when he managed the game, he was trash. His rookie year was 2 years ago, Lawrence.
I know. That's what I'm saying right now. You don't know if he's going to be an insurance salesman or a backup. He could be easily be either, so it's too soon to tell. I'm dying on this hill, Sammy. No, I'm not having this.
He's an insurance. I know you're dying on the hill. You can die on Mount Everest for all I care. Look, he's an insurance salesman. Look, I think 2 things can be true at once. The way the Patriots handle Mac Jones is utter garbage, okay? And I will die on the hill that whatever the Patriots did to Mac Jones, it was not fair. He is not a good QB. He will never be a good QB. That's the end of that. Now, Ryan Tannehill, on the other hand,
does he have the same amount of Pro Bowls as Tua?
He's just, oh my God, Lord have mercy. No,
I'll give you really? I'll give you that if we can have that.
Oh my God! Go! My gosh! Look, Tannehill's a game manager. I don't think there's any.
I'm not putting Mac Jones. There's no world where I'm putting Mac Jones lower than Zach Wilson, Kenny Pickett, and Trey Lance. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
I don't know. Mac Jones is garbage, bro. He was bad. He was so bad, bro. Like he was. Bro. He was bad. It was crazy. It was on what? Bailey Zappi beat the guy, bro. Like, what are we doing?
No, Bailey Zappi didn't beat the guy. Bailey Zappi lost job as well.
Oh, my God.
It was just, the QB room was awful.
Like, you're dying on that hill 1,000%. Ryan Tannehill. What else to say other than he's mid, but now he's below mid. So I'd say he's a career backup. I don't think.
I honestly think he's a future Fox analyst, personally. But I'll stick him there for the time being. Back a bit. I think
that little. We're being very nice to these QBs with the future career insurance salesman. I think if it were my list, I'd put a lot more QBs. I'm mostly dealing with semantics here, but it's okay. Heineke. Heineke's been a good backup his entire career. So I think, putting him in the backup tier is only right, 1,000%. Nothing much really to say about Taylor Heineke. Kyler Murray is a franchise QB, and I think he proved it this year. He's not a game manager at all. I think it's just so weird, like the placement of this list, to be honest. I'd probably take this all down and adjust it myself, but I don't have control. So we're just going to leave it like that. Taysom Hill played some QB spots, but I mean, I don't know if Taysom Hill really belongs on this list.
No.
He really
he's a backup, but he's also a backup tight end and running back and gunner on special teams and wide receiver. So.
There is a singular spot right now remaining.
I know. I was looking at it as well. I think it's got to be.
It's got to be Justin Herbert. Oh, Jameis Winston. My God. Jameis Winston's a backup, man. Unfortunately, he is.
He's definitely not a game manager.
I love him, but he's
definitely not a game manager.
Justin Herbert will be the last player on this list that we will discuss. He is top 5 for me as well. I know a lot of people are seeing this and are thinking to themselves, what the hell? This is more so projection and their 2023 season more than anything. Justin Herbert and his talent are just, he's shown it. I know people are blind sometimes and are just like so fixated on bashing the guy. Him and If are the greatest duo in history. I agree with that. But Justin Herbert, a lot of people forget, at the end of his second year against the Raiders, a team that went to the playoffs, I think it was like 5 fourth down conversions in a row. And they were like 4th and 20, 4th and 10. They were long 4th downs. 4th and goal, it was like at the 12 and he scores a touchdown. Like,
yeah.
Justin Herbert has it. He does. He just has not had a good hand dealt with him. He hasn't.
So no one's going to argue that he's not productive. No one's going to argue that he's not got all the statistics. He's broken pretty much every rookie passing record, I think. Or at least he's held them at some stage.
Right.
Look, he's been prolific. But for me, the reason why he's top 5, and I know this might seem hypocritical because I've talked a lot about wins when it matters, and the Chargers have none of those really, is the one stat that blows my mind is that since he entered the league, was that the Chargers lead the league in points scored and lead the league in points conceded. That to me sums it up. You've got a QB who is at the top of the league in terms of productivity and outcomes and scoring points, and you just have a situation where the defense has been just progressively, like consistently the worst in the league. It's embarrassing, and that's not a recipe for anyone to succeed. And that's the reason why I'd put him, above some of these other guys in this franchise QB list, is because he's never had a defense that's been productive. He's had defensive talent. Derwin James has been one of the best safeties when he's been healthy. Joey Bosa is one of the best edge rushers in the league when he's healthy. Khalil Mack is one of the best in the league when he's healthy. But they've just not had the defensive success. And ultimately, I know the league is transitioning more towards, the better the offense, the more, the greater chance of winning Super Bowls. But it still rings true that defenses win championship and win games that matters. And he's just never had a defense that's been productive, or been even. I mean, I'm not even talking about being productive. I'm just talking about not shit. That's what he's had to deal with. Right. So I think he thinks he's top 5. I think new head coach Jim Harbaugh. I think he's now primed and ready to go and ready to step up to the plate. And no one's sitting here saying he got overpaid, and he got paid a monster of a bag. And no one's going to sit here and say he's a game manager. No one's going to sit here and say he's the product of a system, because the system he's been in has been awful. Right. And so I think top 5 is fair, and I think out of all those guys on the list, I could see him climbing that. I could see him with the right pieces around him and success on the defense side of the ball, with the Chiefs. When Kelsey goes and that window starts to open a little bit, I can see him and Mahomes going head to head for the years to come. Yeah, no, I think other guys on the list.
This tier list is definitely, you could definitely move a lot of these parts. I'd say Kyler Murray is a little bit farther down in my opinion, but it's merely like what you would prefer. I think Kyler Murray is one of the, if you prefer scrambling, I think Kyler's at almost the top of the franchise QB list. So with that being said, this is our tier list. This is it. I understand we don't have future career insurance salesmen. To be honest, it was mostly semantics, us being nice. Best believe we would have been a lot more brutal. But the truth is, a lot of these players still have more to prove. Aaron Rodgers, in the next 2 years, we'll know exactly what kind of QB he is right now. The same thing can be said about Geno Smith. Hell, even Daniel Jones, maybe even Will Levis. I would have personally put Kenny Pickett and Mac Jones in the future career insurance salesman. That's me. That's my opinion. Maybe even Trey Lance. But with that being said, that is going to wrap up this debut episode of The Crowd Noise. Thank you to all of us who have joined us here. That's my friend Lawrence. I am Sammy Hot Takes. This was The Crowd Noise. Catch you later.
In a bit.